Across the ancient world, from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of Peru and the ruins of Mesopotamia, there are sites that seem to preserve evidence of something almost impossible. Stone that looks melted, fused, vitrified, or warped by extreme heat. These are not ordinary ruins, shaped only by time, erosion, or collapse. In many of these places, the damage appears far more dramatic, as if entire monuments were exposed to temperatures so intense that rock itself began to soften, flow, and harden again. Vitrified forts of Scotland. 250 years ago, deep in the Scottish Highlands, a simple walk turned into one of the strangest discoveries in archaeological history. A man named John Williams was hiking across the rugged terrain when something unusual caught his eye. At the top of a hill known as Tapo North, an ancient fort stood silhouetted against the sky, but it didn't look like ordinary stone. It shimmered. It reflected light in a way that natural rock simply shouldn't. The walls of the fort were not just broken or weathered, they were melted. Stones had fused together into a glass-like mass, as if they had once been liquid and then cooled into solid form. Entire sections of the structure looked like blackened glass rather than rock. This was not erosion, not collapse, but transformation. The fort, built more than 2,000 years earlier during the Iron Age, had been exposed to temperatures so extreme that the stone itself had partially liquefied. And yet, Scotland has no volcanoes. No natural process in that region could explain such heat. Across Scotland, there were more than 70 similar forts. Across Europe, over 150. All shared the same impossible feature: walls turned to glass by intense heat. The question was no longer just what happened at Tapo North. The question was, what had happened across an entire continent? The scientific implications were staggering. To vitrify stone, to melt it and turn it into a glass-like substance, requires temperatures of around 1,200 degrees Celsius. Today, such heat requires controlled industrial furnaces, but in 500 BCE, the most advanced heat source available was a blacksmith's forge, and even that fell far short of the temperatures needed. Open fires, even under ideal conditions, rarely exceed 1,000 degrees and only briefly. Yet the evidence at these forts shows sustained, intense heat applied high up in the walls, not just at ground level where fires burn hottest. In the 18th century, theories ranged from lightning strikes to volcanic activity and even mythical creatures. But by 1780, the Royal Society of Edinburgh reached a crucial conclusion. The vitrification was not natural, it was artificial. Humans had somehow done this. Attempts to recreate the phenomenon only deepened the mystery. In 1980, archaeologist Ian Ralston conducted an experiment, building a replica wall using Iron Age techniques. Timber was piled against it and set ablaze, creating a massive fire that burned continuously for 22 hours. The result was underwhelming. The temperature reached only about 800 degrees Celsius, far below what was needed. The stones showed signs of heating, but no true vitrification. The conclusion was unavoidable. Simple burning of timber could not account for what had happened in these ancient forts. Further excavations revealed something even more intriguing. Beneath the vitrified layers, archaeologists found evidence of earlier untouched construction, normal stone walls, timber post holes, and traditional fortifications. The patterns of vitrification added another layer of complexity. The melting often began high within the walls and spread downward, primarily affecting the interior rather than the exterior. If enemies had attacked these forts with fire, the outer walls should show the most damage. Instead, the opposite was true. The heat appeared to originate from within, concentrated around internal structures. This was not random destruction. It was controlled, targeted, and repeated across dozens of sites. Many theories have been proposed. Lightning, despite its extreme temperature, leaves distinctive glass tubes known as fulgurites, none of which are found in these forts. Incendiary substances like Greek fire came far too late in history and still may not have reached the necessary temperatures. Even more fantastical ideas like dragons fail when confronted with the physical evidence. The vitrification does not match an external attack from above. It begins inside the walls. Despite centuries of study, the vitrified forts of Scotland remain one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. The Black Pyramid. South of Saqqara, directly east of the bent pyramid of Sneferu, stands the Black Pyramid of Dashur, a structure unlike any other monument of the Old Kingdom, not only because of its unusual appearance, but because of the questions it raises about its engineering, purpose, and the cause of its destruction. It was once encased in fine white limestone like other pyramids, yet today it appears dark, collapsed, and almost melted into the desert. The name Black Pyramid comes from this ruined state, where the exposed mud brick core and fractured stone give it a charred, shadowy look. Originally, the pyramid would have been a brilliant white landmark dominating the Dashur plateau, reflecting sunlight. Yet it appears that some kind of unexplained cataclysmic event completely melted it and reduced it to half its original size. According to this alternative theory, the pyramid's darkened material and fractured core are not simply the result of erosion or collapse. Instead, they argue that extreme heat, possibly from a catastrophic event, altered the structure's materials at a molecular level. In this view, parts of the pyramid appear almost vitrified, as if exposed to temperatures far beyond those produced by ordinary fires. Supporters of the melting hypothesis point to the unusual texture of the debris surrounding the pyramid. Certain fragments appear warped or fused together in ways that do not resemble standard structural failure. They argue that simple gravitational collapse would have produced cleaner breaks and more uniform rubble. Instead, the remains look chaotic, compressed, and in places strangely sintered, suggesting intense thermal stress. This interpretation often extends into broader theories of prehistoric cataclysms affecting Egypt at the end of a forgotten epoch. Proponents suggest the Black Pyramid may preserve physical evidence of a destructive event involving heat, pressure, and possibly water. They believe that internal temperatures could have risen dramatically, perhaps due to chemical reactions, sealed chambers, or unknown processes taking place inside. In this scenario, the monument predates its conventional dating and was already ancient when later dynasties encountered it. Its ruined condition would then be the result of forces far beyond the engineering errors described by mainstream archaeology. The melted stairs. In the deserts of Egypt, inside the Hathor temple at Dender, a place famous for the mysterious electric light bulb carvings, which many believe are evidence of ancient electrical technology, there's an even stranger mystery. At one section of the temple, we can see these stairs that appear to be melted, giving them an almost surreal look against the backdrop of meticulously carved hieroglyphs and imposing columns. The stairs, with their surfaces seemingly softened and flowing like wax under intense heat, have led to many theories regarding the nature and cause of this peculiar phenomenon. Some suggest that the melting of the stairs is the result of a deliberate act, perhaps utilizing a technology or method of construction that is lost to us today. This theory leans on the assumption that the ancients had access to knowledge or technology that could apply such intense heat to stone, reshaping it without destroying the surrounding structures. Among the more intriguing hypotheses is the idea that the stairs were intentionally altered using a form of ancient chemical manipulation. This would involve applying a substance that softened the stone, allowing it to be molded or reshaped before hardening once again. Such a technique would suggest the ancient Egyptians had a revolutionary insight into chemistry. Skeptics and proponents of more conventional explanations argue that the melting is not melting at all, but a deformation resulting from wear and tear from centuries of use, combined with erosion from environmental factors. The steps, being part of a pathway for countless pilgrims, priests, and visitors over the ages, could have simply been worn down in a manner that, to the modern observer, appears as if the stone had melted. Despite these various theories, no single explanation has universally satisfied the curious and scholarly alike. The city of Sodom. According to Genesis chapter 19, 27, 40, Sodom and Gomorrah were two ancient cities destroyed by God for their wickedness and sin. In the story, God sends two angels to destroy the cities, choosing only to save a righteous man named Lot and his family. As Lot and his family flee to safety, the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah is hellacious. Like the story of the Great Flood, the Bible's account of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah was long seen not as a historical record, but as a religious teaching about God's anger provoked by human sin. In 2006, this opinion would begin to change, thanks to incredible findings at the ancient city of Tall el-Hammam. During the Bronze Age, Tall el-Hammam was the largest city in the Jordan Valley region. At its peak, it was some 10 times larger than Jerusalem. Given its historical importance, archaeologists in modern times have long been interested in the site. But it was not until 2006 that an archaeologist named Stephen Collins would uncover something truly astonishing, something which would change the perception of the site forever. That year, Collins and his team began excavating deep into the earth, all the way to a geographic layer corresponding to a time period around 1650 BCE. There, they would find a 5-foot deep layer of soot, which shockingly contained burned fragments of human bones, melted mud brick, and other building materials, as well as, most inexplicably, pottery shards melted into a glass with a curious green glaze. When Collins sent this strange green glass to a lab for analysis, the results showed that the pottery had been melted by some sort of super intense heat, which had lasted a short period of time. But what, Collins wondered, could have generated this heat? It went far beyond anything technology at the time could produce. As research continued, Collins and his team found something else which baffled them. Beneath the layer of soot and melted material, there was evidence for human habitation at the site stretching back for thousands of years, but above it, evidence showed that the site had been abandoned by humans for some 700 years. Why? These questions led to a monumental research project, which brought together 21 different scientists and took over 15 years to complete. In 2021, these scientists finally published the results of their research in the prestigious Nature Scientific Reports journal. When they did, their conclusions stunned the scientific and biblical world. First, they determined that the cause of the melted mud bricks, burned bone fragments, and glazed green glass could not have been warfare, fire, or volcanic eruption, which would not have generated enough heat to create these effects. This led researchers to believe that the cause must have been an asteroid or comet, and yet there was no crater at the site indicating the impact of such a space rock. This left only one shocking conclusion. According to researchers, the event must have been caused by something called a cosmic airburst, which takes place when an asteroid or comet traveling through the atmosphere at high speeds explodes above the Earth. They looked to an event which had taken place in Tunguska, Siberia, in 1908 as a reference point. That year, an asteroid 180 feet in diameter entered the Earth's atmosphere, traveling at 34,000 miles per hour, and exploded above the remote Tunguska landscape. The results were off the charts, an explosion equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs, which flattened nearly 1,000 square miles of forest. As dramatic as the Tunguska event was, researchers believed that what had happened in Tall el-Hammam had been even more powerful. Over 15 years of study, they had not only further examined the incredible effects Collins noted in his initial excavation, but had discovered other astonishing characteristics. They found tiny sand grains containing cracks indicating a high-pressure event. According to researchers, that means there were incredible pressures involved to shock the quartz crystals. Quartz is one of the hardest minerals. In other words, it was not just intense heat at Tall el-Hammam, but incredible pressures as well. More bizarrely, they found unusually high concentrations of salt in the same layer of Earth where the destruction was found, at least 4% and up to 25% in places. Researchers believed this could have been caused by the impact of their cosmic airburst partially hitting the saltwater Dead Sea and throwing salt up into the air, redistributing it across the area. As this salt entered the soil, it would have prevented crops from growing for many years, explaining Collins's finding that the area had been abandoned for 700 years after the event. Altogether, the evidence led researchers to piece together an incredible scenario. In their words, air temperatures rapidly rose above 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Clothing and wood immediately burst into flames. Swords, spears, mud bricks and pottery began to melt. Almost immediately, the entire city was on fire. Seconds after the blast, a shockwave ripped through the city at a speed of roughly 740 miles per hour, faster than the worst tornado ever recorded. The city's buildings were reduced to foundations and rubble. none of the 8,000 people or any animals within the city survived. Their bodies were torn apart and their bones blasted into small fragments. Here it is no great stretch to put the pieces together. Does the entire city bursting into flames and beginning to melt not sound like the burning sulfur which rained down upon Sodom and Gomorrah? Do bones blasted into small fragments not sound like someone becoming a pillar of salt? Does the salt in the ground which made agriculture impossible not sound like the destruction of the vegetation in the land? In other words, does what happened to Tel el-Hammam not sound like the biblical story of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Indeed, researchers think so, even going so far as to conclude as much in their paper, presenting the idea in a prestigious journal for all the scientific world to see. The Tannis cataclysm. Tannis, an ancient city that once lay in the northeastern delta of the Nile in Egypt, is a site shrouded in mystery and intrigue. It was a thriving metropolis during various periods of the ancient Egyptian civilization. Despite its significant historical role, Tannis remained shrouded in obscurity until a team of French archaeologists unearthed it in 1939 after 12 years of meticulous excavation. The discovery revealed a scene of profound devastation. Massive statues, obelisks, and stone blocks, some originating from the Aswan quarry over 1,000 miles away, were found scattered and shattered. Among these ruins was a fragmented statue, believed to be the largest ever created from a single piece of granite, standing 90 feet tall and weighing around 1,100 tons. This led to pressing questions. How were these enormous stones transported over such distances, and what cataclysmic event could have caused such widespread destruction? Adding to the enigma of Tannis is its barren landscape, almost devoid of vegetation, a stark contrast to the surrounding delta's fertility. This peculiarity becomes more intriguing when considering Tannis's biblical identity as the city of Zoan. Biblical verses describe the destruction of Egyptian idols and the laying waste of Upper Egypt, including setting fire to Zoan. Curiously, some of the granite stones at Tannis bear evidence of intense heat exposure, suggesting a catastrophic event involving extreme temperatures. The nature of the damage suggested an event of extraordinary power far beyond the capability of any known ancient human-made fires or traditional warfare techniques of the time. The colossal statues were blown away and scattered around the site, broken to pieces by the immense force. Archaeological excavations at Tannis have revealed that much of the city's remains were buried under 10 to 20 feet of soil, indicating that whatever caused the massive destruction also buried the site in the ground, completely erasing it from the face of the world. This pattern of destruction aligns with the theory of an external natural force wreaking havoc on the site, possibly a plasma ejection from the sun as suggested by Dr. Schoch. This catastrophic event might have not only vaporized any living beings in the area, but also dramatically altered the landscape, covering the ancient city with debris and soil. But the cataclysm of Tannis is not the only mystery of the site. The numerous obelisks, artifacts and colossal statues, all made from granite, made many researchers like Brian Foerster believe they were built using lost high technology. There are also numerous obliterated remains of obelisks at the site, more than at any other location in Egypt. These obelisks were often theorized to be part of an energetic system, possibly linked to the pyramids of Giza. Perhaps some sort of malfunction in this energetic system caused the city's destruction. Pre-Inca vitrification. In the ancient heart of Peru, beneath later Inca and Spanish construction, survive some of the most astonishing stone walls on Earth. Sites like Coricancha in Cusco have long been presented as masterpieces of Inca engineering, yet many researchers believe the core foundations are far older, pre-Inca remnants inherited from an unknown civilization that existed in the Andes long before the rise of the empire. What makes these walls so extraordinary is not just their age or scale, but the way the stones seem almost impossibly fitted together. Massive andesite blocks interlock in complex polygonal patterns, with joints so precise that even a razor blade cannot slide between them. These are not simple stacked stones, but multi-angled blocks locked together like a giant three-dimensional puzzle. That precision alone would already make the walls mysterious, but the surfaces and joints reveal something even stranger. In many places, the stones show a subtle glassy sheen, especially along their seams and exposed outer faces. Some areas appear almost glazed, as though the rock had once been softened or partially melted and then cooled again, leaving a vitrified, glass-like surface. In Peru, this feature is difficult to ignore. It is visible not only on the outer surfaces of certain blocks, but also inside the joints themselves, where the contact points between stones seem smoother, tighter, and in some cases slightly fused. If this interpretation is correct, it changes the whole discussion. The mystery would no longer be only how ancient builders carved such perfect joints by hand, but whether they used heat as part of the construction process itself. Some researchers have suggested that the walls were not simply chiseled into precision, but finished through controlled heating that softened the outer layers of the stone. This could explain how such irregular blocks came together with such flawless accuracy. Instead of shaping every contour mechanically, the builders may have heated the surfaces until the stone became partially plastic or fluid at the edges, allowing it to settle into gaps and create those signature seamless joints. This idea becomes even more intriguing when one looks closely at the famous stone nubs found on many Peruvian blocks. These protrusions are often dismissed as lifting bosses, but that explanation does not always fit. Many are located in awkward positions, often near the bottoms of stones, where they would be far less useful for lifting. Some even have flattened upper edges that make little sense for transport. An alternative possibility is that at least some of these nubs were connected to the vitrification process itself. Small dribbles or outlets where softened mineral material flowed downward during heating and cooled into protruding forms. It's even stranger that there are some Peruvian walls that look obliterated by extreme heat that melted the stones. The geology of the Andes makes the puzzle even more complex. Ancient Peruvian builders worked with hard stones like andesite, rhyolite, limestone, and sometimes granite. Andesite and rhyolite are fine-grained igneous rocks, which means that if heat altered their surfaces, the results might appear as smaller-grained, glacier seams. Researchers have noted that in some Peruvian joints, the grain size does seem finer than in the untouched body of the stone, which is exactly what one might expect if those contact areas had been exposed to high temperatures and then cooled relatively quickly. At Coricancha, the implications are enormous. The foundations are not only visually stunning, but also remarkably earthquake-resistant. Their zigzagging joints increase friction and mechanical stability, which is why they have survived centuries of seismic activity that destroyed many later structures in Cusco. Some stones also display curious round holes and unusually smooth curved surfaces, adding to the impression that their builders possessed techniques now lost. Whether this involved heat treatment, advanced stoneworking methods, or some combination of both, the result is undeniable. These walls do not behave like ordinary ancient masonry. The pre-Inca vitrified stones of Peru remain one of the greatest unresolved mysteries in archaeology. If the glassy seams and polished surfaces truly reflect deliberate heat application, then these walls may preserve evidence of a forgotten engineering tradition far older than the Inca themselves. And if that is true, then places like Coricancha are not just sacred temples or impressive ruins. They are fragments of a vanished world, left behind in stone that looks in places as if it was once fire. Destroyed city of Mohenjo-daro. In the vast plains of the Indus Valley, in present-day Pakistan, lies the ancient city of Mohenjo-daro, one of the most advanced urban centers of the Bronze Age. Built around 2600 BCE, it was part of the Indus Valley civilization, a culture known for its remarkable planning, drainage systems, and standardized architecture. At its peak, Mohenjo-daro was a thriving city of tens of thousands, with straight streets, multi-story homes, and a level of organization that rivaled much later civilizations. Yet, despite its sophistication, the city was suddenly abandoned, leaving behind a mystery that has puzzled researchers for over a century. When archaeologists first excavated the site in the 1920s, they expected to uncover a typical story of gradual decline. Instead, they found something far more unusual. Scattered throughout parts of the city were human skeletons lying in the streets, as if the inhabitants had died suddenly and without burial. Some were found in groups, suggesting that whatever happened occurred quickly, leaving no time for proper rituals or recovery. This alone was strange, but it was only the beginning. More puzzling were the physical signs found in certain areas of the city. Some bricks and building materials appeared to have been exposed to extremely high temperatures. Researchers noted that achieving such effects would require temperatures far beyond those of ordinary fires used in ancient settlements. This raised an unsettling possibility that Mohenjo-daro may have experienced a sudden high-energy event. Adding to the mystery, some studies have reported elevated levels of radiation in parts of the site, along with skeletons that appeared to show signs of unusual exposure. While these claims remain controversial and debated within the scientific community, they have fueled alternative interpretations, suggesting that the city may have been destroyed by a powerful explosion. In this view, Mohenjo-daro has even been compared to the aftermath of a modern blast, where heat and pressure combine to cause both structural damage and instant loss of life. Mainstream explanations tend to favor more conventional causes, such as flooding from the nearby Indus River, climate change, or gradual environmental decline. There is strong evidence that the river shifted course over time, which could have disrupted agriculture and trade, leading to the city's abandonment. However, these explanations do not fully account for the localized signs of intense heat or the sudden nature implied by the scattered human remains. Ancient texts have also been drawn into the discussion. Some researchers point to descriptions in Indian epics, like the Mahabharata, which speak of powerful weapons capable of producing blinding light, intense heat, and widespread destruction. While these accounts are mythological and not direct historical records, they have been cited as possible echoes of real events remembered through oral tradition. Melted desert. In the remote expanses of the Eastern Sahara, along the border of Libya and Egypt, lies one of the strangest discoveries on Earth, Libyan desert glass. Scattered across thousands of square kilometers, these pale yellow to greenish glass fragments shimmer under the desert sun, often appearing almost translucent and remarkably pure. What makes this material so fascinating is not just its composition, but the mystery of its origin. To form such glass, temperatures must exceed 1,700 degrees Celsius, far higher than typical desert conditions. There are no known volcanoes in the region capable of producing it, which has led scientists to propose that it formed during a massive cosmic event. The leading theory suggests that a meteor or comet exploded in the atmosphere above the desert, generating an intense airburst. This would have released an enormous wave of heat, instantly melting the sand below and transforming it into glass before it cooled and solidified. This phenomenon invites comparison to something much more recent, the Trinity nuclear test in 1945. When the first atomic bomb was detonated in New Mexico, the intense heat fused desert sand into a green, glassy substance known as trinitite. Both Libyan desert glass and trinitite are products of extreme, short-lived heat events, capable of melting surface materials almost instantly. However, while trinitite is clearly linked to a human-made explosion, the significance of Libyan desert glass extends even into ancient Egypt. One of the most famous examples appears in the jewelry of the young pharaoh Tutankhamun. At the center of one of his ceremonial necklaces is a carved scarab made from this very material, polished and shaped into a symbol of rebirth and transformation. To the ancient Egyptians, this mysterious glass must have seemed almost otherworldly, born not from Earth, but from the sky itself. Is all of this evidence of an advanced ancient weapon of mass destruction, comparable to nuclear bombs, or a sign of some kind of cosmic cataclysmic event? The questions remain unanswered. Long before recorded history, there may have existed advanced ancient civilizations capable of building gigantic megalithic structures that would still challenge us even today. They appear to have lifted enormous stone blocks weighing thousands of tons and stacked them with almost laser-like precision, using methods we still cannot fully explain. Many of these blocks remain difficult to lift even with modern cranes, which makes their achievement seem even more extraordinary. They also shaped some of the hardest stone on Earth into mathematically precise and seemingly flawless monuments, leaving us to wonder who these builders were and how they accomplished what appears impossible. Were they truly just primitive societies, or were they masters of a forgotten technology now lost to the sands of time? Explore the evidence pointing to an ancient, global, and technologically sophisticated civilization that may once have ruled across the planet. Its builders created gigantic sites whose ruins still stand today. Discover more in our ebook, Prehistoric Megastructures, a nearly 500-page volume filled with images and in-depth analysis of some of the most astonishing and unexplained ancient structures ever found. Inside, you will explore monuments that appear to have been built with advanced technology from a forgotten age. The ebook is currently available at a limited discount. Make sure to get your copy before the offer ends.